feeling so small. Watch the clock ticking off the wall. But tonight I'm letting it go. Spend my coin for sure. I'm gonna be myself, or I could be someone else. No one's stopping me now.
Hi everyone, welcome. If you're new here, welcome back. If you're my partisan subscribers, welcome today in today's video where we talk and discuss a heavily detailed topic about the future of voting rights and act in the United States and its failure in the U.S. Senate 1 week ago, and the new future that it holds within the United States. So as you all may have remembered, this is Spacey. He is our little robot, our little companion to bring a little bit of joy and happiness to your life. I turned off the audio for him so you guys won't hear any sound or music coming from him. Maybe it's just some mechanical parts. And he is also far away from the computer, which means that he won't be making any mechanical sounds. And so hopefully you guys will not hear it. It will just pick up on me and not him. But this is just an experiment. I listened to all your reviews. There's no background music. There is no sound coming from him in particularly. And yeah, that's really it. So I hope you do like him. I hope he wins your heart. And hopefully this experiment teaches us that the value of technology and the joy that it can bring to all of us. So anyway, without further ado, let's begin. And actually, I know he is distracting during reading, so he will go to sleep once we start reading today. So just enjoy him while he's still awake. Anyway, if you are new here, everything will be time-stamped in the description below as well. Okay, this is being live streamed on January 28, 2021 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here are some quick disclaimers as well. I do have a deaf accent. I may have a hard time pronouncing certain things. You can finish reading that if you would like. Now, please keep in mind this video is just for entertainment purposes only and for education purposes only as well. Okay, hopefully you guys can still hear me. This is live, so anything in terms of connection loss or issues, I'm just gonna edit out of the video. So when you guys rewatch it, hopefully that part and the bad clip will be edited out. We do have a snowstorm in effect on Long Island, New York. So just bear with me with the connection issues. Again, I do apologize for any inconvenience that may be caused. Just hang tight. I will always keep coming back until the video is over. I promise you. Here's the last little bit of a disclaimer. Let's jump into it. I do not want to waste your time going forward. Spacey is now asleep, so you can rest assured that he won't be disrupting our live at any point in time today. All right, perfect. Can you guys hear me? Am I clear? Yes, I am back here right now. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Liz. Hi, Paula. Okay, let's jump in because I don't want to waste any time today because we don't know when next time I'm going to get disconnected. Okay, so why did I get that old Voting Rights Act that just failed in the Senate a week ago that it will pass? Why did it not happen? What changed? So basically, that was a little wordy when I was writing it. So basically, here's what I said. So a long time ago when I was reading on the Voting Rights Act for Biden's first 100 days, I asked what things Biden would pass. Clearly, Biden hadn't got much done, and we all know the reason for that. But besides the point, one of the major legislation was the Voting Rights Act. And so the energy was there. I want to know why and what happened. Why was it not passed in the first place? Why did the cards tell me it was going to pass? Now, also, I changed our terminology here in this video as well. Instead of referring it to the Voting Rights Act, I call it now the new Voting Rights Act. Because remember, the old Voting Rights Act failed. We have to call it the new one, the new legislation that they're going to put forward. So it's a brand new way for us to look and see what new legislation that's going to take its place, and hopefully that one will get passed. So let's take a look. All right, so why did I get that old Voting Rights Act failed in the Senate? Why did I keep getting it was going to pass, but then end up failing in the Senate? Why is that? Why the sudden change in fate? Why the sudden change in fate? I feel like this might be a gift, and we don't realize it. Okay. The challenge is the strength. But maybe not a lot of people, there might be more power on people's side who are fighting against Voting Rights Act and voting bill in case of you didn't know, like legislation, anti-voting legislation, there's more strength on their side in numbers than there are people in favor of voting rights. Or if there is more people supporting voting rights, they're not as enthusiastic, they're not as loudmouth as the people who are anti. We have the 4 cups here, right? It has tried many times over again, right? We have the 3 amendments from originally from the Civil War, right? That established anti and abolished slavery. This one is kind of like that 1960 Civil Rights Act. It was a gift, but it was only a temporary band-aid. It was never something that was meant to be for the long term. And so that is why the United States is undergoing this massive change, because it was never going to be honored. It was just to kind of keep the status quo going and to satisfy those who are fighting for those things to settle for less than what they really bargained for. And that's what I'm seeing here as well, that the Voting Rights Act is more than what they really wanted, the government really wanted, and they really don't want to pass it. And we have here as well as we have the hanged man. With the new culture that's coming, with the new generation that's emerging, they don't want it to pass. And I'm talking about both the Democrats and the Republican Party. It feels like there's a unilateral agreement here that the reason why they wanted this to fail was so that they can maintain power for as long as possible. They keep this sort of stigma that they're both against each other and that they're fighting for the people, but really they're fighting for the same thing. They're fighting for the same person. And they're not really fighting for the people. They're fighting for whoever they work for. And that's why I saw in this card, when I saw just a couple minutes ago, I saw Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. And what I see here is that even though the other Democrats are not going to go in favor of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema are basically those people who take the fall for the other Democrats, because why have the entire Democratic Party vote against it and make it appear as if the Democrats are being flip-flopping when you can just have the 2 moderates take the fall? We do have here, we have the king of swords, right? This idea, this concept that of politics, and it's not working in this type of era. It's not working, and this is what Biden's doing. Biden, it feels like he is not thinking correctly. He's thinking too political and not thinking what is best for the United States. And here's why. As many of you all know, I talked about the recent Supreme Court nominee. Joe Biden said he wanted to nominate a Black woman to the Supreme Court. And what I saw in the cards was that when he was doing some of these candidates, there are other more qualifiable candidates than what he's doing it based off of. He's doing it based off on certain characteristics to satisfy a certain base, to make that first president to get in the history book. But really, if you are a person and you are fighting to create a legacy, why would you want somebody to degrade you based on their own characteristics of your own luck? You never worked there to get to where you got to be just based on your own looks. And yes, that had happened to white people, and I feel like it's kind of degrading for other people in minority position, electing them and putting them in positions of power just simply to appease their own voting base. That's not right. And that's what I'm seeing here as well, is that this politics idea from Biden doing all political politics, expecting it to work. But look what's in the background. It's turmoil. Trees are in black. This was a dark time for America, and those politics are starting to not work. And you can also see this as well. If you look in the background, the trees are starting to move, and they're starting to get windy. So, the black swarm is coming, so to speak. What Cash Peter, if a lot of you guys will watch him, may have been familiar with, is that Biden might very well be bringing on the black swarm, because he is keeping the traditional politics going, the neoliberalism. Now, all you guys know, I'm very blunt and very honest. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We have here as well is the reason why it fails in the Senate was that something new was supposed to emerge. A new concept, a new idea. Maybe the Voting Rights Act wasn't meant to be passed because something better is supposed to take its place. Potentially, maybe the Voting Rights Act was only to do half of what it's supposed to do. Maybe the new Voting Rights Act includes electoral college reform and popular vote, right? It could be a multitude of reasons why it fails in the first place. It may have been on a subconscious level, but consciously it had a totally different narrative. And that's what I'm seeing here. At the bottom of the card here, it always had a 50-50 shot of passing, but it was always going to have a rocky future ahead. right? It was always going to have a rocky path. So that's basically the reason why it's when I read on it, why it didn't pass in the first place was because of traditional politics. In the new age of America, in the new age of Trump, you don't play traditional politics. Okay, we know why it didn't happen and what changed. What changed is the political climate had changed. It's no longer the status quo. The status quo has changed. So that's the answer to the last question. So again, this will be all time stamped in the description below. The next question I will cover is, what is the new Voting Rights Act new path forward? Is there even one? Let's ask. What is the new Voting Rights Act path? The new Voting Rights Act new path forward. What's the new path like for the new Voting Rights Act? Okay. Let me know what you guys think. I'm very curious. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see this. All right, so the first card that we have here is sixth in bone, don't break my bone. That's the first word, well, quote I got from this card. Right, we have here the 10 of Cups here. Now, this is my election day card, like election result, people voting, people going out to vote. So this is very interesting that we get this card in particular. Now, the next card that comes after that is we have the Hierophant in reverse, government. So in order to receive this equilibrium, the government must be turned upside down on its head, right? And so it tells me that the way the government operates is not supposed to the way a normal democracy works. The reason why the Voting Rights Act does not work is because America is not a democracy. In order for it to operate, it needs to have a democracy. It needs to have a government in which it allows the people to be the leaders and not the rulers. The next card that comes here is we have, again, the 4 Cups, right? It's temporary band-aids, giving people temporary satisfaction for long-term loss, right? It's not working with this generation. This generation is changing the things that we are normally used to. You know, temporary band-aids, putting up a black sash of a person who's African-American and calling it one of the amazing things in the history of America. It's not quite amazing because that's only a band-aid. If you really want to do really amazing things, get legislation done. And that's what I'm seeing in these cards. This generation, now it's not taking it and say, you know what, we'll settle for less. We're going to settle for exactly what we want. We're going to settle for more. And that's why this is coming through here. We have the Knight of Swords here. No matter what Biden does, no matter what he's going to do, it's not going to pass in the Senate. And not even in the House as well. I do feel like with the new wave of the new generation, it's going to take over. There's going to be a big seismic shift. I see like kind of like an earthquake. Wait, not a literal earthquake, but in a metaphorical earthquake. Shaking the Senate and the House. And it's almost like dropping people. People who were there for months, years, decades are going to start to fall. And I kind of see them like almost falling like the way a tree would when you shake the branch and all the leaves fall off. The weak ones will fall to the ground. And the new people will take their place with new priorities to change the government. And that's what I'm seeing here as well, is the Knight of Swords. A lot of things that we are used to now, because of Trump, he had almost like, okay, a catfish and 2 whiskers, right? The catfish is known for being in the water, in the mucky water. And the way they find their prey is they take the little whisker and sew up the dirt on the ground, creating dust and air. Well, in that same thing, is taking things that was once settled, that were thought to be done and over with, and reimmersing them back into the surface. Donald Trump was that little catfish who was bringing things that we thought were gone, and we finally got over and bringing them to the surface. Joe Biden was just that transitional candidate. So Donald Trump and Joe Biden are just those people in those early eras that's going to signify the change in the direction of the United States. We have here as well as we have the Chariot and card in reverse. And what it kind of tells me is the way that we used to elect our president are going to change. And I think that is why, one of the major reasons why the Voting Rights Act did not pass, it because the new leaders of America are not elected in the way that we normally elect them today. And I definitely tell you here that maybe the new Voting Rights Act may include some sort of legislation, like ranked choice voting, for example, that will decide the new president. Now, this may take a couple of decades to get here, But we will get there eventually. And I do see here a change, something I have never seen before, right? When I last read on this, I never saw this type of change. Good, I'm glad you can hear me. Now I can see and hear you. My grandparents live on Long Island, New York. Well, hopefully they are safe there. It's not bad here now, but the Wi-Fi is pretty bad. I think the people are very tired of the status quo change coming. Yes, like that is indeed correct. The next card that we have here as well is that working. Right now, I don't see a new voting rights act being worked on now. If they're working on one, they're using the same one from the previous one that failed in the Senate. So as long as they keep using that one, they will not pass in the Senate. It will not pass. Right? I don't know why. It just feels like consciously they're not there, but almost feels like once the change is just right, something's gonna flick in their head, almost like a snap of a finger, and they're all going to say yay. Even though it's against their own interests, against their own political party stances. It almost feels like something takes over their body temporarily and make them choose yes. We have here as well as we have the Ace of Pentacles, and that's sideways. And it's almost like a gift, but the words that I'm hearing is not a gift from God. It's a gift from the cosmos. That's what I'm seeing here, is the gift from the cosmos. I don't know exactly what that means, but it feels like on a spiritual level, this new direction involves spiritual involvement. It's no longer an issue of the physical. It's now an issue of the cosmic energy. There's an issue of the spiritual sense. Oh, really? My Amazon Kindle responded to Toy Chris. Is that me? You named the toy after me? That's cute. Okay, so the next question that we have here, does the new Voting Rights Act need to expand more things or reduce it? Now, as we know, we asked already. I saw that they're going to add in something in terms of electoral college reform and how we elect our president. But this is a really good question, as it lets us hone in on more specifically on what that is and what it could be. Give me a moment. Okay, then we're going to ask, if they're going to reduce it as well. We'll ask. They might get rid of something, they add things, stuff like that. Okay, let's use my own cards. Okay, so Spacey Angel, tell me about the new Voting Rights Act. Let me put the question up so I can read it directly. Does the new Voting Rights Act need to expand and add more things or reduce it in order to pass? What is the future of the new Voting Rights Act? Does it need to have more things added to it, removed, both simultaneously? Whatever you want to ask, whatever you want to tell me, Spacey Angel. With the current and brand new energy of the brand new Voting Rights Act, what is the future that lies within it? Will things be added to it? Will things be removed and taken away from it, similar to the infrastructure package? Okay, things that are kind of reversed, it's kind of like energy here. Is whatever I feel in my gut should be flipped and should not be flipped over. Okay. We look like we have a very interesting concept here. I'm going to show you. It's a story. This is why I love my card. Okay, so the first challenge to the Voting Rights Act is the Democratic president, right? As of right now, we have a Democrat president. We do not have a Republican, which is why this card comes up as a challenge. The challenge is trying to get the president to sign off on the law, right? The next thing we have here is the American Eagle, strength and freedom. That's reverse here, right? It's a yellow. It means I do. If this is not the meaning lies here to 120, post-influenza pandemic. Right now, we're in COVID-19 in a hotly contested pandemic, right? We're also in the 20s, the years of the 20s. Right now, we don't have a war economy, and we did not have a Great Depression yet. And so what we're kind of experiencing here is kind of like this timeline. It's giving me a timeline here, so pay attention to the timeline, right? So what it's kind of telling me here is that during this new Democratic president, he's going to have a very, very hard time trying to get people to go to entertainment. So really, what reason why we have entertainment in our government and in our country is particularly to distract the American people from what's really going on. So, for example, Eminem, you all have heard of the sexy green Eminem, with the high heels and the stilettos, stuff like that. Well, that was actually a smoke screen. But what was actually going on with Eminem is that they're actually being sued by a human rights organization for human slavery in Africa and abuse. And so that's why those smoke screens mirrors, they kind of distract people from what's really going on. So same thing, right? When a major event or legislation is passed, it's normally passed during a big game like baseball, the World Series, football, stuff like that. That's when major legislation are passed. Is when the public is not paying attention. Now the next card that comes under here is we have Republicans lose. It's reverse, but it also shows Democrat lose, right? I mean, actually, what? Okay, so it says Democrats lose with a Republican victory. This here says a Republican loss, so the Democrat win here. So that means with this is that whatever's going on here, that the Democrats are winning on issues. Maybe if they can pass legislation when the public is not paying attention, that is the best time to pass legislation, right? So if the Democrats really wanted to do this, they should have had the legislation be passed during the Olympics or during the Super Bowl, something like that, something major event that make the people not pay attention. You too, David. We also have here the election of 2004, the swing state decide, the state of Ohio, but it's reversed, which is why the young voters come out. I talked specifically about the new generation, which is my generation, actually, millennials and Gen D, right, from age 18 to 29 years old. This is the generation that won't take Band-Aids. They won't take something that's so small. They won't take temporary happiness. They want happiness. And so that is the change. This is this new change here. That's the Democratic Party challenge, is to allow these new generation, this new voting bloc, to change the Democratic Party. Now, remember, the Democratic Party had not seen a huge influx of these new generations yet. My generation will be fully voting in 2024 presidential election, which means that technically Biden and Harris might not be the Democratic nominee. And that's particularly due to student loans. If they cannot do student loans, they will not be the Democratic nominee. And that's rightfully so. And so we also have here, as well as we have discrimination, voting rights, slavery, civil rights, right? And the reason why this card comes up is because exactly what we're talking about. We talk about Black Lives Matter and how this will spark the new idea for a new voting rights act and to expand it. I do see that there's going to be brand new expansions here, because we have voting rights here on the left here. We also have slavery on the left, on the right. Was actually, ironically enough, this is subconscious too. When I did this, and then we have discrimination, right? We're talking about that all the time. So I do feel like there needs to be kind of like, they need to get their core ideas and core respect and value to be put in the right place at the right time. You can't just push a bill out and say, you know what, this is the perfect time for us to pass the bill. People are protesting in the streets. That's the wrong idea. That's the wrong idea. Like putting Kamala Harris as VP just simply because she's Black and woman. That's not the right motive. You should pick her because she's a good candidate and a good vice president. And so that is what I'm seeing here as well. The moral standing there needs to be correct. You can't have the wrong morals and expect it to go well. It's not going to, right? We also have here as well education, right? We have private and public schools, high school dropouts, high tuition education. I talked about student loan. Right, student loans are going to be a major issue here. And so I do feel like in some way, there's going to be like a tie package. There's going to be some sort of package deal that's going to be included. Potentially, the Democrats may brand this as a student loan issue and slip in the Voting Rights Act as a part of a double package with the student loan. And what that's going to do is that's going to motivate these young voters to come out against the Republicans and costing them a loss. Right? Because of student loans. Remember, a lot of people are in major debt. I'm in a lot of debt. I'm in $40,000 in debt. My sister's in debt by $500,000. So it's pretty bad. We have the electoral margin. It's reversed, right? But we have here as well, we have civil rights issues, police brutality, a human being disability rights, right? And so we talked about police brutality here as well. And so the fact that the cards here already confirming the reason why and what we're going through. So what it's kind of telling me here that there's a little bit of package deal. Now, I'm going to get to the main part of the question because I don't want to waste your time. But the Voting Rights Act needs to expand. Yes. The answer is yes. They need to expand to student loan forgiveness, civil rights and disability rights, expanding the voting rights beyond what it already is, having the right moral values, doing things when people are distracted. That's the best time to pass legislation. We also have here as well, Congress is going to decide on this new legislation, right? And the result is the Democrats will win. So it does show me, no matter what outcome it does, it says eventually the Democrats are going to win the Voting Rights Act. And so I think the energy is there. They just lack that moral concept, doing the right thing. That's what they lack. Not doing the right thing because it fits the political perspective. Not doing the right thing because it's a political motive. Doing the right thing because your heart tells you to do the right thing. That's what the Democrats are lacking. That's why the Democrats are not passing things done, because the energy, the love is not really there. It is there for some candidates like Bernie Sanders, John Ossoff, Raphael Warnock, those candidates, including even Stacey Abrams, but not for candidates like Hillary Clinton or Biden or Obama. Those type of people are kind of more traditional. And that's what I'm seeing here, that there's a new generation, new wave that's going to be swept in. Exactly speaking, right. And here's the next question. Will the passage in this new act need to be bipartisan or partisan between party lines? And so as of right now, we saw in the previous question, we said the Democrats win, right? Congress decides. But now the next question we need to know is, does it need to be bipartisan? We know the Democrats' reason for losing, particularly that bill, is because they don't have the right values, right? So now the next thing we need to do is, do they need the right values and be able to come to an agreement, right? That's what I'm saying. Okay. Well, the passing of this new acts need to be bipartisan or partisan between parties when voting in this brand new Voting Rights Act. Okay. Okay, so here's what I heard. I'm going to repeat what I just heard from my guy. They told me when America's on the brink of destruction. Okay, so when America's on the brink of destruction, Americans would then listen. But it may be too late to say what they couldn't, but it'll be enough to say what is left. I don't know what that means, but that's interesting. Okay, so with the new passage of this new act, will it need to be bipartisan or partisan in nature between two political parties, between the Democrats and the Republicans? Will they pass this brand new Voting Rights Act? Or will it be bipartisan? Now, if you don't know what bipartisan means, it just means two parties coming to an agreement. Partisan means two political parties voting party lines, meaning that they are not voting for their own moral value, they're voting based on their own political values, right? Okay, so the card that we have here next, and I feel like this, there you go. The card that we have here next is the Star card. Now, this is my presidency card. This is also the 13th colony, the original 13th colony. The idea and the concept here is that we're taking a little bit of the U.S. Constitution, taking our cup and pouring it and creating a little river that is always going to find its way home back to where it was origin, right? And that's the Star card here. It's also being challenged by political upheaval. So it potentially tells me here that potentially, if these politicians don't listen, there will be an uprising. And this uprising may not be very pretty, right? And this uprising is going to be it's going to cost a lot of lives of the senators and politicians and their own families as well. And it's going to be at the expense of their own decisions, for their own neglects, for their own negligence against their own people, for representing and not representing them fairly, only representing those who give them money. And that's the challenge here to the Star card, is that if they do not listen, people will make them listen by all means necessary. As it's actually stated in the Constitution that you can overthrow the U.S. government if you so please. You do have that right. However, the government will do whatever it can to prevent you from doing that. You do have here as well, you have the Page of Pentacles. And this Page of Pentacles kind of gives this new idea, that this new concept, this new birth, new idea, this new revelation, right? It's challenged by, in reverse, it's the Chariot card, slowness, not getting things done. It's the idea concept, but it never gets through and always gets stuck, right? Almost like quicksand. It almost makes the government feel like it's incapable of governing a country because that is how they designed it. They designed it so that there is no governance, but there is governance. It's almost like a military police state. We have here as well, we have the four wands here. Bipartisanship, right? This is after the chariot. This is where we're in right now. We have the idea, the concept, right? We're in a police state type government. What we're going to experience is that in the future, it's because of these threats that happen and because of the death of a lot of politicians and political leaders around the world, I do sense that there's going to be an agreement where people are going to will have to listen to the people again as they realize that they have more power. Now, the reason that the government fears the people from uprising and revolting, particularly because of the power that they have in numbers, right? A machine will only be able to take out as many as it can until the ammunition runs out. But as people are in numbers, which means that they can take more bullets, and people will be more willing to kamikaze than the governments are, right? We have the Hermit. The future is kind of unknown. It's unknown, but the direction is headed in the path. That what we're experiencing now is kind of in this direction. We have here again, it does tell me it's going to have to pass. And I do feel like in some way or some form, I do see in my mental image here, but this could all be taken simultaneously at the same time. It almost feels like all these people are fed up. They know that something's going to be passed in the House. They kind of poll January 6th again, and they almost like I've seen a mental image where they're holding a gun to the politician's head and telling them to vote yay or I'll take you out, basically. And that's what it almost feels like. It's gotten to the point where their lives need to be threatened to even do the right thing because their moral value is no longer with the people. It's now with whatever they hold close to them, which could be money. Right? And we have the King of Cups. Biden's era, Biden neoliberalism, Reaganism, Bushism, Obamaism, Trumpism is coming to an end. It's coming to an end. This time period that we've been experiencing since the 50s is starting to close. It's basically referring to the New World Order. So the New World Order and the Old World Order is going to start to close on itself. And that's what this is coming into fruition here. That this is not a governmental plan. This is a plan by the people to overthrow the old system and reform the new system. That's what I'm seeing here. So what do you guys think so far? Do you guys resonate with it? Do you guys get anything different in your cards? Now, again, this is only for entertainment purposes only, and things can indeed change. The cards are not predictor of the future. Well, actually, they are. I lied. Cards are a predictor of the future. They will tell you exactly everything you need to know. It's the interpreter who's incorrect because he or she may not be familiar with the vocabulary that the cards are trying to give to that person. So, hope that makes a little bit more sense. Think of it like somebody with a language barrier and you're in the middle trying to transcribe both parties and you're trying to make sure everybody understands. Hi, Lisa. I'm glad you like it. Glad. I'm glad you understand. Glad you like it. Okay, here's the next question. Will it be done through executive order? Does this mean Biden will be president or so? Now, if you don't know, executive order is basically a law that can be passed by the president without the approval of the Senate and Congress. Now, here's the little downside here. What is that? Okay, I don't know what that is. Okay, I don't know what it is. But anyway, besides the point, they can pass the bill without the Senate and the House approval. Now, the only problem with the executive order is the executive order is only temporary. So as long as the president's in office, the executive order will stay in place. But until the new president comes in, that executive order could be overwritten by that new president's executive order. Right? So it's kind of like a Band-Aid, and it's only temporary. Now, this would be a great way for the Democrats to set up the Republican, as it will make it almost appear that the Democrats did it. They did what they've done. They got everything through. And then the Republican came in and changed it, and that will potentially help energize their base into the next election to kick them out the next time. Now, that's a political motive, but it works nonetheless. So let's take a look. Will it be done through executive order? Will the pass of the new Voting Rights Act be done through executive order? No. That's the first thing I got. Now, that's what my intuition card is telling me, but let's take a look. Okay, so the first card here is we have the Rolls of Fortune card in reverse. And what this card is kind of telling me is it's kind of like a no. It's a no, but it's not a yes, if you know what I mean. It almost feels like we're kind of like, you ever played a game with your friend, you're like, all right, and you have like a blindfold and you're with your friend and your friend's like, you have to find something, but you can't see with the blindfold. So you have to kind of say hot, cold, warm, colder, colder, hotter, hotter, that type of thing, mild, stuff like that. It feels like in some way, this is what the card resembles here, is that it's not hot, but it's also not cold. It's kind of like warm. So I'm in the right area here, but it's not exactly executive order. So it could be something similar to it, almost like a loophole kind of thing. If you know what that is, let me know. We have here as well as we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this is the 9 of Swords in reverse. And what it kind of tells me that, yes, we have a lot of hardship facing, but it feels like they're going to be an uphill battle. Because what it's going to be looking at is almost feel like the Voting Rights Act is only a band-aid, and they need more to be added to it. And so there's going to be a lot of separate legislation that's going to have to be passed in order to get the full package of the Voting Rights Act. It feels like they're going to need to reform so much of it, not just a small part of it. It feels like this is a bigger problem than what they initially thought it was going to be. And we have here as well as we have the High Priestess in reverse. And this is kind of bad and good. It feels like there's still going to be reform being made, but it's not going to be good reform because they've got to learn from their mistakes. So it's going to take a very long time. Hi, Linda. What's up, love? Lisa, I'll be reading your message in a moment. Same with you, Paula. And then we have here the Magician. Yes, the president still has the ability to be able to do something, or whatever this loophole is that they find with this new Voting Rights Act, they will find a loophole and they will pass it. But all these passing here, it almost feels like they don't even need to form a government. It almost feels like something else makes it itself. It almost feels like potentially this brand new reform could come from an organization, come from a corporation. It could potentially be a group of people who coalesce around and form a brand new voting system, particularly made by the people and for the people, without the influence of government. It could be also as well a private commission of independents who don't identify as any political party leaning. This could what this mean as well. This could be that loophole speaking. Okay, does this mean President Biden will still be president? We're going to take a quick look because I'm curious to see if she will be president and when this is done. Will Biden be president when this is done? Okay, so yeah. Okay, all right. This is what I see here. When Biden is president, this could mean two things. It could mean that Biden ends up handing over the throne to the next person as he kind of fell ill, he passes away, and Kamala Harris becomes Madam President. That is one outcome, and he hands the power to the next president. Right? We have here this person coming through, charging through, having victory after victory. The next card comes in. They don't really face as many troubles as the previous president did. And because of that, we have here the Knight of Cups. That is one interpretation. Here's the other interpretation. We have here the Knight of Swords here, coming in with this brand new idea, defeating the former president Donald Trump, right? We have here the next card here coming in. He may not have a lot of victories because he had a lot of trouble with these people fighting constantly him, but he had one major victory, and that's the voting bill. Right? He's coming through and it's going to pass all the way through. Right? It almost feels like they're going to bypass the entire legislation. We have here, there's going to be no fighting from Mitch McConnell. As it kind of gives me Mitch McConnell vibes, so it tells me that here they're going to find a loophole. And because by this time, President Biden is president, but it's right around the time when he hands the throne or the cup, the new transition of power. Now, this could mean that if Biden is reelected for a second term, was to be 8 years, it can potentially be in 2028 or 2027 when this new bill comes into fruition, right before Joe Biden leaves office and hands somebody else the new political power. That's what it could be. It could be that by the end of a term, this is when it occurs. Now, it could also be it could be as soon as 2024, 2023. It could be as late as 2028 or 2027. So we have that range of ratio there, but it's going to be the end of a term, right before the presidential election. So I do see here as well, if it was to be passed, it will be passed in the month of January or December. So I do see that here. Kind of very similar to the energy of the way they did, what's it called? With Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat with Jamie, oh my God, Barrett, Justice Barrett, with the woman, with the Republican trying to replace her and shove her through. Kind of very similar to that energy there. Let's read your question or comment. Okay, Lisa, man, I've been hoping this may be the case. Like an infection gets worse before it gets better. We are in and going through difficult times before you get to the other side. Yes, I do see that. I did say that potentially if we didn't listen, a new virus will come about. Which actually, I'll be making a video specifically dedicated to the bird flu. That could potentially be that outbreak that I was talking about. Now, please keep in mind the bird flu is a dinosaur virus because birds are actually originally a direct relative of the Velociraptor, Tyrannosaurus Rex, those type of animals. So it'll be very interesting to see what kind of new viruses are going to come about. I also did say that my generation particularly will experience many pandemics. This will not be the last. I believe that there are changes coming in the future of government. I agree. I agree with that. What you're saying is what I had a strong feeling about for a while, but we have to go through quite a bit of a mess before it gets better. Exactly right. So I'm glad there's confirmation here. A painful birth of story. Yeah, really, a painful birth. Yeah, exactly. You'd rather have a painful birth and learn lessons rather than having a very easy one than being confused and not sure what to do, and it will fail anyway. So you're better off having the failure before it than having success later than having the success early than failing later. Will the new Voting Rights Act be passed in 2022? Now, I want to know, even though I gave the time frame, I'm just curious. This question came out before I started reading. So, yeah. All right. Spacey and Angel Tommy, will the new Voting Rights Act pass in 2024? All right. We have it here. All right, hold your horses, guys. We have a story coming. Almost like an entire time frame. It kind of matches exactly what I've been saying earlier in the video, but it's kind of like more detailed, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the first cut is, will the new Voting Rights Act be passed in 2022? This is the story of how we get here, right? From where we are now and how we get there. It's not going to happen in 2022. I can tell you that without a doubt. But it's telling us the story. We have a landslide. Reagan wins in 1984, right? We talked about 1984 specifically. That's why I put the number there, right? George Oswell. Now, George Osborne, I think it was. I'll be talking about his book in particular in a separate video. I'll make a video dedicated to it in the future. We have here United Nations, right? United Nations. The reason why the landslide card comes up and then United Nations, and it kind of talked about corruption, government around the world, right? Conspiracy theories. It talks about political government, political upheaval, but also political wins, right? It talks about propaganda. It talks about a multitude of different things. It talks about fascism, the early rise of it. Everything that's happening now is because of the win from Ronald Reagan. Reagan's win is what changed the entire course of the United States. We have a historical leader, right? A very important concept here. Historical leader. In order to understand what's going to happen with voting rights, it needs to understand the past. And the past is going to repeat in the history, and it's going to be repeat in the future. The next card that comes up, because we already have it, it's interesting I just mentioned that, because the next card that comes up is the military coup. I spoke about this, an upheaval, a riot of some sort going against the government and forcing change if the people in government are not willing to make those changes. People will have to step up and do it. Right? And it says the election of 2026. Now, I talked about Biden. If Biden was to have this bill passed, it would pass around the time he's about to pass the mantle on to the next president, right? And I talked about specifically 2027, 2028. I talked about specifically 2023, 2024, right? We have here the election of 2026, which is actually the midterm year during this the next midterm after this year. Yeah, right? The next midterm will be an election of 2026 with Texas, where Texas is going to be deciding the vote. So Texas will be very significant here in this case. And Texas is very significant already. It is the first state out of the entire country to introduce major anti-voting rights laws, which will make sense why this is a swing state. It will be a swing state by 2026. It could be a swing state in 2024, but it may not go blue. It may go blue the next election after that will be the midterms of 2026, right? We have here by this point in time, we have the presidency is up for grabs. So I feel like we're going to be fighting for this Voting Rights Act for a very long time. And even if it does pass, it's going to take a very long time for us to even have new legislation that's going to be paired with it. I talked about this before. I talked about the Voting Rights Act and how it's not going to come all capitulating. They're going to realize that there's going to be more than what they originally thought that they needed. So there's going to be constant updates, almost like an update on an iPhone. You need to update the technological wear because you didn't realize because you neglected it for so long. It's very similar. We have the presidency up for grabs. We don't know who the president is, and it makes sense. It feels like that is what's happening. It's almost like they're pulling another Donald Trump type scenario where you don't know who the president is and who is really a president and who is not. We have here, I talked about right before, we have here Black Lives Matter, we have here COVID vaccine, social issues, we have protests and riots. That's the first. The card that follows is the Electoral College. We have here ranked choice voting, popular vote, right? That is what's going on here. It could be that the brand new presidency is up for grabs. It's so close, we don't even know who the president is. And that what might be the big change here. Also, it could be another big change. It's a military coup, where it forces this potential presidency up for grabs to be halted. It could be that maybe because there was some sort of fraud, or someone said there was fraud, and someone in high position of leadership decided to pause things or halt everything. It almost leaves us kind of in the balance, and we don't know what's happening, what's going on. But the next card that comes up is we have democratic enthusiasm. Right, democratic enthusiasm is going to be very high for the Democratic Party. Now, this is a midterm election, but this is also, by this point, this is 2028, right? And we have here the Democratic enthusiasm is very high. The Democrats are winning. They're doing very well, right? But then we have election fraud, right? We have here no fraud written on top, but we have misinformation and power and control, right? And all this is done because they don't want people to have an experienced civil rights, human rights, right? A human being. And then we have here police brutality. And what you kind of talk to me here is that this brand new issue here is that people are going to start to feel abused that they have never felt before, right? And they're going to start to really experience the government in a very abusive way. People are not going to view the government, especially those who honor it and say it's a great thing, and they love us, they're going to help us, Republican. It kind of does feel like they're going to end up seeing it once they start realizing that they're getting hit in the head with a baton. Then their eyes might just open up. We have the next card here. We have the education card here, right? Again, the same issue with disability rights. This needs to be a part of the Voting Rights Act in order to pass. We have here the Electoral College margin. The Electoral College is very close. Look at that margin here, 269 to 298. The Senate is 52 to 48, and the seat here is 199 to 212 seats. So whatever this may mean here, this may talk to us and say that, well, the Electoral College is going to be very close. It's going to be less than 300 electoral votes. Okay, it could be a 269 margin, which means it's tied and goes to the House Representatives. Right, it could mean that this party is behind the Electoral College seats, House Representative seats, and the Senate is kind of a little bit bigger. And so it kind of tells me that we're almost in this position where we don't know who president is because the electoral college is extremely close. The next card that comes up is the older adult voters, boomers, right? Gen X, 45 to 64, right? And it kind of talks to me about the fact that they're going to be the one who's going to make the last boom, right, so to speak. They're going to be the last living generation. They're going to be considered a new styling generation, right? They're going to be a very small group, but they're going to be a very core voting base. And the reason why they're going to be a very core voting base because they're going to be the one who changes the most. They're going to be the one who's going to make the most dramatic change in the right direction. Almost like they are those people who are going to change the course and direction of what they originally elected before. So, for example, boomers are more Republican leaning, and they may have voted against their own interest. It feels like by this time, they're going to be voting for their actual interest. They're actually going to do what's right for their party. Right for their own generation. And they're going to be the ones making the last stand, and they're going to go out with a bang. And that will be the end of that generation. That generation will potentially still be living, but a lot of them won't have the same power anymore. The power pretty much dwindled. Then we have martial law. So that will be the end. And that's where we are in 2028 with the voting rights. And that's interesting because it did not tell me about anything about oh, okay, here you go. 2028, it appears that with this martial law, it could potentially be a civil war in the United States. It could be very similar to black. So it could potentially mean that we do have it, but then it starts to. That makes a lot of sense now. We have Abraham Lincoln, African American. I talk about things that happened in the past that are going to happen back in the future. Okay, we have that here. We have the military coup coming into play. Makes a lot more sense now once you get to the end. And then you have here as well, we have martial law. So it potentially could mean as well that it could mean at the end of it, in order to get it, it may come out a price, and that price may very well be civil war. Right? I'm a Gen X and I've been feeling this for a long time as well. Are you saying what exactly have you been feeling? I want to know. This is not what I expected. I was actually expecting an answer. So as of now, I'm gonna act the right away tarot cards and kind of get like a direct, definitive answer. But almost like they gave us a little story of what's happening and the long-term effect of passing this voting rights bill. That is going to cause more problems. I can't say in the right way because war is not how we should, do things. But I feel like there's no way, there's no solution that you're gonna have to do it. But to actually understand why I said I saw people going into Congress with a gun in their head and forcing them to vote a certain way could be very well this Civil War type thing. Most of what's being championed today, police brutality, LGBT rights, began during Gen X. Really interesting. Did not know that. So it's very interesting to see how this is playing out. Like, this entire video started to make a lot more sense now. Okay, so Spirit Angel tell me, will the new voting rights act be passed in 2022? One card. And I'm not going to have the card flip over. I'm going to take the first card on the bottom of the deck. Will it pass in 2022, the new voting rights act? Okay. We have the Queen of Cups. It has the possibility of coming out, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be let out of the cage. I feel like this is Nancy Pelosi, and it feels like they have the information. She has the new article, but she's not quite ready to release it yet. It's not time. So no, it will not pass in 2022. Wow, we went through all that just for that answer. Okay, so will it be passed before the next presidential election in 2024? As you can clearly tell, I did not expect the answer that I got from that card. So we're going to answer this anyway. I'm Generation X, and I see this also as well. We're going through a growing pain as a country, and challenges are ahead for the country. Maybe I wonder. I'm going to ask Cash Peter if he can read on the Black Storm. I wonder if that Black Storm that's behind Biden, when I talked about it early in the video, potentially could be that civil war that's brewing, right? Not Gen X and younger generation be the ones that make the last stand right now. The boomers are holding on with a death grip. Yeah, they're really holding on. They're really trying to hold on to their own wave. But I feel like those last couple of people who are boomers are going to do the right thing. And what I will say, and I know I hate when I say this, but I do feel like in my gut that a lot of those people who have made the wrong decisions have kind of very well determined themselves where they're going to go after death. But with those new changes from those small people from those small generations are going to be the one who's going to change that direction going forward for the rest of the generation, their generation in particular. All right, so will the Voting Rights Act be passed before the next presidential election of 2024? Let's see. No, right now what they're doing is okay. This is what it feels like. It feels like it's not going to pass, but it could. It feels like this is kind of like a time for creation. It's being created now, so to speak. It's original articles are being drafted to be perfected. And it feels like they're lobbying and getting money. The organization are following. People are being riled up. People want to start to remember. People are being educated on it. And so I do feel like it's going to take a long time. I don't feel like 2024 is going to be the year of the Voting Rights Act. We're going to get it. We're going to have it. But it feels like the right time, the perfect storm needs to come up. And that this very well could be the Voting Rights Act is what triggers the Civil War. And that could be what part of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, how with the new president coming in, and then we have a civil war. Now, a lot of you guys may have not remembered, maybe a very slim, some people of you will remember. A long time ago, I was reading on me, and somebody wanted to know where will I be because I was considering running for president or political office back then. And we were reading, we were just playing around, and I would ask the card for a card that represents me. And one of the cards came up, right? And I said, okay, this is the card that represents me. I put it back in the deck, shuffled it up, and we were talking about Civil War, right? And I was given this whole story of this entire deck up until I find that card. And I say this person becomes president, but then dies before they go in office. And lo and behold, it's me. The card comes up and it's me. The person gets shot and then dies. Which is actually true because I actually remember vivid images of me running on like a white hallway, and I had never spoke about this yet. I'm gonna do a video on it. But I'm like running in a hallway, and all I see, if you guys are familiar with Marvel, they have Hail Hydra, but it's kind of like an octopus, and it supposed to resemble like the alien race who took over Nazi Germany, who kind of shared the same ideas as Nazi Germany, if that makes sense. And all I see is remember seeing this like very modern wall, and I see the American seal, and I have the word Hail Hydra on it. I'm running, screaming, and that's the only thing I remember. Then I always never trusted the U.S. government because of that dream, particularly. So it was very interesting. Yeah, look up our artists during the tie. Like Ice Cube, punk band, many genres have raw content that was emotional and transformative concerning injustice. Yeah, like Tupac. Ice Cube with his group NWA were the first to sing about police brutality, really. Yes, but there are always those in each generation that want peace and love and a better world. We cannot group people into title, religion, etc. Exactly, Liz. That's exactly what I saw. I saw the people who are living for the boomer generation are going to be the good people who are going to make that one decision that's going to change the legacy of their generation. So I almost feel like even though that generation gave people a lot of heartache and a lot of headaches, that last group of people, the good people, good-hearted people, are going to be the ones who are going to make the most change. So I think those are the ones who are going to change the legacy. So no, I wasn't necessarily grouping them, but I was trying to group them in a way to show that people see them in a certain way, and then their perspective changes because of those small group of people who changed that. So anyway, guys, I do hope you guys like today's video. I know it's a very complex, very interesting, very weird tarot card reading, but nonetheless, I do hope you guys like it. Let me know in the comment section below if you do agree with the content in today's video. If not, let me know what you get in your readings as well, as I'm very curious. I love you guys. And have a very beautiful night. Namaste, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye. Oh, you believe in some cases dream can be prophetic? I'll talk about that in another video because a lot of my dreams have come true. Yeah, so anyway, guys, love you and sleep tight. Bye.